Well, good afternoon, everybody. How are we doing today? Hope everybody's well. Welcome to Office Hours. It's where I answer 3 youth ministry questions. If you don't know who I am, maybe you're just scrolling by. My name is Paul Turner from thediscipleproject.net, and I am here to answer your youth ministry questions, I hope. I have 3 really good ones today. I don't think there's no bad questions. I say really good questions, but there's really no bad questions, I don't think, right? That's what they taught me in school. No such thing as a dumb question, and I don't think there's anything as a bad question. But if you're brand new here to the channel, thank you for being here. If you enjoy the content, maybe you've seen some of this, some of my videos, or maybe this is your first time here and you just say, wow, you go live and you answer youth ministry questions. Yep, I do every Wednesday, 2 p.m. Central Standard Time. And so if that's your jam, if that's something you really would like to be a part of, I would love for you to be a part of it. So go ahead and click that subscribe button and click that bell notification, and that way you know when I go live. So excited to be with you. I got my little juice, my little go-go juice here that I can drink and stay awake. And by go-go juice, in case anybody's wondering, it's my favorite drink, by the way, sparkling. It's from Kirkland. It's one of my favorite little drinks here that I like to have. It's yummy. And so today, like I said, we're going to be talking about 3 questions that youth pastors have. Some have been sent to me. Others are just kind of in the universe. And so I will answer those questions. If you have a question while I'm talking, right, as I'm answering other questions, you can leave something in the chat. If you're watching this in the future, you can go ahead and leave that in the comments below, and then I will get to that for next week. So lots of cool things. I have a cool announcement, just so you know, a product I'm going to be releasing, a resource I'm going to be releasing next week that I'm excited about for Halloween. I think it'll be a lot of fun. So you want to join me for that because I'll be, telling you how to get it, all that kind of good stuff. So be here for that. I don't think there's any other announcements other than tonight for my youth meeting, just in case you're wondering. It's we're having a barbecue. That's right, a barbecue. So one of my students came up with that. So we're having a back-to-school barbecue, and we're going to have pink. We're just going to wear pink to the barbecue. Just going to be fun. Right? So when you listen to your students, you get better ideas. At least I do. I don't know about you. But if you listen to your students too much, then the ideas sometimes get weirder and weirder, but you can balance that out, right? Balance that out. Excuse me. Okay, let's move on here. So question number one is brought to you by the Youth Ministry Roundup newsletter. That's right. I have a newsletter if you're not familiar with it. Every week, I send out a newsletter, and in that newsletter, you can see there are trends and culture articles. There's youth ministry articles, there's videos, there's job postings, there's what I'm reading, there's free stuff, there's playlists sometimes that I have that I'll do like for this month. I had September bangers. That's right. Music that I think is really good. Some that would be good in your youth room. So every week, if you want really good information like this in your youth room or in your inbox, you want the September bangers, the music. You want that in your youth room. You want this in your inbox. So if you would like that, go check it out. I'll put a link down a little bit later in the show notes there. But if you just go to thediscipleproject.net, you can find it there, and you get a little freebie, by the way. You get a little freebie for signing up, a little free lesson, a little something for you, okay? All right, so let's move on to the question then. And the question is this: should we charge students for food? I happened to see this recently, and I've heard this before. This is not the first time this question has been asked. In fact, most youth ministry questions are ubiquitous in the world because standard youth meetings all have kind of the same profile, so a lot of the same questions get asked. And in this case, the question is, should we charge for food? And this question is usually based on the fact that there's not enough budget, right? There's not enough budget for the church to pay for everything. And so I would say my answer to this is really easy. It's no, as in never. I think it sends the wrong message the wrong message to the church, to the students about the church. It says, by the way, you should come here and pay for the food we're going to give you. I don't even understand that concept. The deal is, if you're the youth pastor and you're struggling, it's time to ask for a bigger budget. If you have, let's say you have more students, right? If you're gaining more students, Nathan Conrad. Hey Nathan, good to see you. Did the newsletter come out this week? I saw it last week. I don't remember seeing it though. I did send it out. I will double check that for you though, and if you did not, I will make sure I will check the list and get back to you and make sure you get it in your inbox ASAP. So yeah, if your budget is not covering the cost of food, listen, all of us as youth pastors, raise your hands. Nathan, I'm expecting a like from you if this is true. How many of you have paid out of your own pocket for food, supplies, resources? All hands are raised. Okay? I get it. The issue with that is that when we do that, we get the church off the hook because we say, well, this need has to be met, so I'm going to do it. Rather than go into a board meeting, a deacon's meeting, or whatever it is, and say, listen, you pay me this amount of money, and I am paying for things that should be in my budget. And if you don't have a budget, you should have a budget. You should ask for a budget. You should say, I want a budget, and I want to know how much I can spend every month so that I can. Nathan says, I've done that. Hey, I've done that. Me too. And so if the issue is let's say the scenario is there's not enough, you have X amount of kids, doesn't matter. 10 kids, 12 kids, doesn't matter. And you're buying the food and the church is not participating in that, you need to tell the church you need a budget because you're not paying for this out of pocket anymore. We want a budget. How much can I spend? I think, look, if you're just doing a normal thing, I think $100 a month just for food, depending on the size of your group, $10 is $100 is pretty basic. It's a basic amount. And every week you could do $20 or $25 in snacks, food. And I'll tell you this, I just went to the grocery store. And I think we know this, prices are up on food. So guess what? Budgets have to adjust to meet that need. And so if you don't have a budget for food, you need to work with the people in your church and say, we need a budget. A budget for food to make sure that we have some food every week. An overall youth budget to be able to say, look, I'm not paying for all this out of my pocket. This is not going to happen. And then the second scenario is, let's say B is your youth ministry is growing. And now what you were spending to feed 7 to 10 kids, you're now having to spend on 20 to 25 students. And so guess what? It's time to go back and say, hey, listen, we've grown. We'd like to see the budget grow as well. And especially if it's sustained growth, especially, and you're continuing to grow. And that's why you keep good records. How many did we have in youth this week? How many did we have in youth next week? Last week? How many did you have, this week? And so as you begin to have data, right, to have data, you say, okay, based on the data that our numbers are growing, this is happening, we're going to need a bigger budget. Like we're going to need a bigger boat. We're going to need a bigger budget. And so never be ashamed. I am never ashamed to ask for money for the youth, ever. And I'm going to ask, and I'm going to keep asking until I'm not putting out money out of my own pocket. And so, should we charge students for food? The answer is no. 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 Just no. The other half of that is, if you're not budgeting well, that's one thing, by the way, youth pastors. If you're not budgeting your what you do have well, if you're sinking a ton of money in other stuff, you just need to readjust your budget. I'm not putting this all on the church or the pastor. If you're not using your budget well, I can't help you there. You reallocate some of the money you're spending on this or that to put it in your food budget. Okay? So do that. So let's see here. I think I've sufficiently answered that question. I think I'm done with that. Nathan says, what does Nathan say? Let's go to Nathan. Nathan says, I often hear that people think the youth should fundraise then. Absolutely not, Nathan. If we're going to fundraise for anything, let's fundraise for the two things that matter, camp and missions. We're not fundraising for food. We're the church of the Lord Jesus. We're not going to go out there and fundraise. I'm sorry. It's one thing. You can have, listen, you're going to do a yard sale? Well, what is this for? Oh, we're trying to raise money for food in our budget. Is that a great testimony? I don't think it is. I don't think it's a great testimony to your church to say, hey, we're out here fundraising so our kids can have snacks. I am blessed to be in the church that I'm in right now because all I said was, I just mentioned this. I said, look, we have a food pantry closet thing for students. And every week they come in, we got ramen, we got Pop-Tarts, we have Little Debbie's. By the way, leave your favorites in the comments or comment right now and say, of those three, ramen, let's see, what did I say? Ramen, Little Debbie's, and Pop-Tarts. If you're on a desert island, which one of those do you want? Just, you're only allowed one. Okay? Let me know. But here's the deal, though. When we fundraise, it should be for the biggest thing we're doing. It should be for the biggest goal that we have. It should be for the dream that we have. It should be for missions. I want to go on a missions trip, or I'm going to camp. And those, Nate's my boy. Nate knows what's up. Nate knows what's up. Nate is saying Swiss cake rolls. You know how to eat those too, right? You don't just pop them in your mouth. You got to peel them, right? And then you deconstruct it until you just lick the cream down out of the middle, and then you pop it in your mouth. That's how you eat a Swiss cake roll, by the way. Well done, Nate. So to Nathan, to your question or to your response is, there's no fundraising. That makes no sense. Back to what my example was. All I said was to somebody, I said, hey, look, I have a little closet with those snacks in there. Oh, hey, could I contribute something? Why, yes, you can. And the next day they brought a whole thing of chips, and they brought what else did they bring? What am I thinking about? The squishy packets. The silver squishy packets. What am I thinking about? Help me out in the chat there. Oh, what is that called? It's a juice thing. Silver packets, straw. Put it in there. I'm not sure now. I bet Nate knows. If Nate's eating Swiss cake rolls, then Nate knows. He knows what's up. What is it called? What is that drink called? Anyway, those were there the next day. So there are people in your church who want to assist you, who would be happy to contribute. But I think you got to have a budget and never be ashamed to ask for a budget that you are budgeting well. If you budget well, I don't think you should have a problem. Either Capri Suns, thank you, Nate, and a thing of Capri Suns was in my office. And so, big thing of chips and Capri Suns saved me a little bit of money on my wallet, and somebody got to contribute. So, no fundraising I don't think I've ever fundraised for my budget. Now, I will say this. Church plants who don't have a budget yet, I think a budget for the first year. I'm willing to go this far. If you're a church plant or you're remodeling or restarting your church or whatever, if you said as a church, not as a youth ministry, as a whole church, you're willing to get out there and say, we're going to, because the youth are important in my church, we as a church are going to fundraise and do the budget. We're going to start with number one, an offering in church that says, hey, give what you can. We're going to establish the budget. Then you say, if you would like to, we're going to do a little fundraising. We're going to do a huge yard sale. We're going to do whatever. And then you say, you have to put out there and say, well, what else do we have? What are we trying to fund here? We're not just trying to fund snacks in the church, in the youth group. We're trying to fund mission trips. We're trying to fund camp scholarships. We're trying to fund these things. And so if you're going to do that, dream's got to be big. It can't be I'm fundraising to have snacks in the youth group. Sorry. Can't do, I'm not going to do that. I'd rather quit. Then if the choice was fundraise for snacks in the youth group or quit, I'm probably going to choose quit. You can also go to stores, mom and pop shops, see if they'll give you a discount. Work with local supermarkets. Work with mom and pop stores. Work with those places that have. Work with restaurants. Says, look, I'll buy from you every week. If that's the case, can you give me a discount? Or would you like to be loving and kind and giving and give us some things? That'd be nice too. So I think there's ways around it, Nathan. I think there's ways around it. But I think that's where we're not going to fundraise though. We're not going to fundraise for snacks. The budget, by the way, once again, you can do it under certain circumstances. Okay. All right. So let's move on. So we've done that. Let's see. Let's move on here. Let's see. We're going to move on to the next question. So, should we charge? No, we're on to that. Then, this question here, if you're not familiar, I have a podcast called the Youth Ministry in Motion Podcast. And it is, according to the algorithm, the number one youth ministry podcast. It's not the most highly recommended. It is not everyone's most favorite podcast, but the algorithm says it's number one according to my data. And so if you have not listened to the number one youth ministry podcast, you should. And I'm going to put links down below. You can find that on Spotify and iTunes and wherever podcasts are listened to, really. I mean, I'm giving you those two because those are the main ones, but you can find it. If you just Google Youth Ministry in Motion Podcast, Paul Turner, you're going to find it. Over 255 episodes currently. 255 episodes. So check it out. Listen when you can. Subscribe and all that good stuff. And leave comments and things and 5 stars and nice things like that. Let's go on to the second question. Second question is, what should I do if my pastor wants to add responsibilities to my job that were not agreed upon when I was hired? I love this question. I love it because it is time for the youth pastor, organizations that want you to do 10 different things. I think that has to be negotiated. I think the era is over of buy one, get 3 free. I'm going to hire you for one job and then I'm going to give you 3 others. Everything is negotiable. I would negotiate salary. You say, Paul, what if I get fired? Well, what would you like? Would you like 4 extra jobs? Or would you like to go to a church that wants to hire you to do 1 job? And I know we need to be giving and loving and kind and all the things that Christians should be. But the issue isn't about being all that. The issue is about what is the church trying to get from you that it doesn't want to pay for? That's all I'm saying. And I'm saying you're allowed, youth pastor, you're allowed to negotiate. You're allowed to say, oh, you'd like me to do children's ministry too? Good. Let's talk about how much extra you're going to pay me to do that, because I'm not doing it for free. Say, Paul, can you do that? Yes. Yes, you can. Just like you would at any other job. If you were the guy who manages, I worked in a delivery. I did truck deliveries of air conditioning supplies. And if he had come to me and says, Paul, I need you to organize the warehouse and drive the truck, Well, guess what? Now we're talking about two separate jobs. That's two separate things. And I'm not going to do those two jobs for one price. That's just not going to happen. And so in the church, you're not going to do anything well anyway. If you're doing two jobs, you probably, unless you have a lot of help, probably can't do both of them very well anyway. So I would negotiate what you're paid. If you're going to add another responsibility to you, negotiate. Do I get more time off? Yeah, I hear you, Nathan. Other assigned duties? Yeah. I don't. If I would not recommend signing any contracts, Nathan, because if it says that at the bottom, I am in disagreement with that, because that is just a license for abuse at that point. Other assigned duties. Yeah, I'm just going to give you whatever I want, and you don't have anything to say about it, and I'll pay you whatever I want. In fact, I'll pay you less, maybe. I'll just change your salary altogether. And I understand that. I do. But I am of a time and an age where I'm just not going to do it. And I think that is a very good, Nathan, that's a good point to make, because I think that has to be negotiated upon hiring. So they know what they're getting and you know what you're getting. The question should be in your interview, listen, if something happens and I am asked to take on another role or responsibility, is there more pay involved for doing that responsibility? I think it's a fair question. And if in that meeting, part of what they say is, oh yeah, we'll compensate you for the extra job or the extra role, then okay, you can hold them to that. But I'm tired of guys and girls getting burnt out because they're doing 3-4 jobs that the church is unwilling to pay them for. This is contributing to the burnout, folks. Multiple jobs without multiple monies. And people are getting burned out because they're doing 5 things. And then the guilt is held over that youth pastor because, well, it's for the kingdom, brother. Really? Whose kingdom? God's kingdom? Or the church's kingdom? Listen, folks. Let's be smart out there. Youth pastors, let's be smart out there. Let's negotiate. If you want to give me another job, another role, another responsibility, I'm not talking about taking out the trash. I'm talking about careers. I'm talking about a whole nother job that requires organization, leadership, skills, abilities, budgets, all the things. I'm not talking about, hey, would you drive the bus for the seniors once a month? We're not talking about that. We're talking about entirely different things that you may not even be qualified for. Who knows? So I'm going to say, what should I do if my pastor wants to add responsibilities to my job that were not agreed upon when I was hired? Negotiate. Then we find out how valuable you are. It's simple as that. We find out how much they think of you. We find out how much they want to keep you around. We find out the motives behind these things. Just like, and it's a whole other subject, but when pastors want to hire husband and wife and have the wife do a separate job she's not getting paid for, nah. No, sir. No more of that. We're going to be responsible in the church. We have to be responsible people, responsible to our staffs, responsible to the people we hire. Let's be responsible, church. Okay, that was a free one there. That was just a little freebie. If you don't notice, I'm getting a lot more free on these live streams because I have opinions. And so there you go. Just letting you know, if you're missing these live streams, you're missing it, because I think they're just going to get hotter and hotter, folks, as the questions come in. You're going to find out all kinds of things. Let's move along. You guys have things to do. You don't need to hear me pontificate about these things. Let's move along. Okay. Next question. Any questions, by the way? Is there any other questions in the chat or anything before I move on? I don't want to miss any questions. I know when I get into the last question, I usually start to wind things down, and then 25 questions come in. If you have anything now, you may want to jump in on that. So if you're just happen to be scrolling by and you're watching a madman just rant and rave about church's responsibility concerning their youth pastors, my name is Paul Turner, and I'm from thediscipleproject.net. It started about 15 years ago. And I jump on here every Wednesday, 2 p.m. Central Standard Time, and I answer usually 3 questions for youth pastors that submit them. So if you have a question, feel free to submit it. If you're watching this later, submit it for the next Wednesday, and I will put that in the queue, and then you can do that. But that's what I do every Wednesday, answer 3 questions. I call it office hours, where you come into my office. I'll tell you what I think about certain things and such. And don't forget, if you have not subscribed, be sure to subscribe and click the bell notification there so you can be notified when I go live. Okay? All right. Move right along. Third and final question. Let's go on to this. And this is Nate's question, I believe. Nate, I have surprises for you, Nate. If you don't have this, watch this. So this question is brought to you by my brand new My Youth Meeting Playbook. Now, My Youth Meeting Playbook, 2 resources in one. The first one, My Youth Meeting Playbook, is all about, it's packed with, it's basically an ebook. It's an ebook on youth meetings, and it covers a ton of topics. I'll give you some of the topics that it covers here. Let me go ahead and open this bad boy up. And let's see. The chapters that I have in here are chapters like dissecting a youth meeting. I go through every part of the youth meeting. I chop it up of how to do that particular part of the youth meeting. My ideas, my thoughts, those kind of things. There's a chapter on called "You Need to Mess with Your Meeting." There's one, how to keep your message from bogging down. Why are you having this meeting? What is worship and why do your teens need it? 21 ways to worship God without a band. A very necessary evil. Announcements. Moving students from consumers to creators. Wow. Just wow. Don't leave out your adult volunteers, and on and on. There's a lot of resources, and that particular ebook comes with your own dissecting, to dissect your own youth ministry. Questions, answer, places to put answers, all those kind of things. And so if I can show you, let me show you this. Well, let's see. I have it here. I made a printed copy. This comes in, I printed a copy for myself. You can always print a copy for yourself, but this is what it looks like in real time here. Right here. Look at that. It looks like the graphic. How about that, right? And then inside, there are 52 pages. That's meeting number 28. And meeting 28, Nate, if you go to the store, it's up there right now. If you go to the store, which is gumroad.com/youthminresources. And I'm still going to answer your question, by the way. I'm just pitching this because I know there's other people who might need it. But this will break it down, right? So you got your page there. You got page 27, and on page 28, I'm sorry, on the next page, it gives you, if I can quit my camera moving around, there we go. It will then, all those things, everything that I think is important in a youth meeting is on this sheet. And so if you say, hey, Paul, I could really use this, well, go over to the store, gumroad.com/youthminresources, and you will find the Youth Meeting Playbook. And I don't know if I'm quite done with it yet. I think I may be adding more things to it. So, you're going to get 2 separate things. You're going to get the ebook is one thing, and then this is 52, because 52 meetings a year, right? Roughly. And they're numbered. So you know what you're getting. You're getting 52 different meetings. So then you can look back through your book. And by the way, there's no print copy. It's all PDF, but you can print it off, put it in a binder, and get it that way. Okay? Super easy. And you're walking around with your youth meeting playbook, you look like a genius. What is that, Pastor Nate? What is that, Pastor Nathan? Well, it's my youth meeting playbook. I have a playbook. I don't have just a planner. A planner doesn't tell you how to plan. But a playbook tells you what plays to run. And that is what I'm trying to do. Help you do that. So, gumroad.com/youthministresources. There'll be a link down below later. Okay? All right, let's go on to the question. The question is, let's get out of there. What would you use as a template for a typical youth night if you had 2-hour time slot? Well, interesting you should ask. This is my template. All these questions. The template, and it doesn't matter. By the way, my youth group meets for an hour. 1 hour. And yet, if I fill one of these out, I find all kinds of ideas hiding in my brain that the Holy Spirit just brings up if I'll just sit long enough and do the planning. What a lot of people won't do is they won't sit down and do the plan. They'll just say, well, what's the lesson? And I'll find a game on YouTube, and it's a thing. Poor planning will not allow you to achieve your goals. It will not allow you to grow your youth ministry. Poorly planned youth meetings will not grow your youth ministry. Poorly planned youth meetings do not contribute to the success of your youth ministry. And so a well-planned youth meeting over and over and over and over again will lead to growth, will lead to success, because you've got a plan. My former camp director used to say, either you walk in with a plan to your cabin, or they have a plan for you. And your students, if you don't have a plan, your students have a plan. And I'm going to say that their plan may or may not be better than yours. I'm just saying, they're bringing the chaos, folks. So, let's break this down here. Let's break this down. What would you use as a template? Well, that's my template. 2 hours, that's a lot of time, Nate. You meet for 2 hours? I used to meet for 90 minutes. I can't be too shocked at that, because we would start at, well, if you don't count the last 30 minutes, because the last 30 minutes was all hang time, but proper meeting was 90 minutes. Okay? So we had 90 minutes. So 90 minutes is made up of all kinds of things. You can decide, every meeting can look different. It doesn't have to look the same. It doesn't have to look cookie cutter. You really, and part of deciding this is, let me do this. Let me just do this. How about we just do this? Can we just let's bring this up. Let's break this down. I'm going to go through meeting number 1 here. Okay? Can you guys see this? Good. All right. Let me know on the screen there. Make sure you can see this. Okay? 5:30. Nate says 5:30 to 7:30. Okay? Sunday nights. I do a lesson the last 30. Okay. That sounds like a good plan, Nate. So, once again, format-wise, date, speaker, topic, purpose. And then you have your core text. What am I going to be talking about tonight? Because you got to know what you're talking about. And then you have opening ideas, which I include some of those in the book, in the ebook. Closing ideas. And why do I put that up there? Because you start with the end in mind. What do I want this meeting to look like? What is the purpose of the meeting? Well, the purpose of the meeting, you're trying to maybe guide and decide what your closing time is. That's dependent upon what the purpose of the meeting is, or what the purpose of your message is. Then you have worship. And once again, worship does not have to always be, most youth ministries don't have a band. Some youth ministries got somebody with a guitar or a keyboard. But I'd say the vast majority of youth ministries don't have a typical worship night. But once again, that's why I give you 21 ways to worship God without a band. Because worship is not just about the band. It's about turning our hearts towards God. Then you have announcements. And yeah, I talk about that in the book. Then you have media. What media are you going to use? And this is not just media. Media fits into anything. Media is a book, a poem. When we think media, we only think sometimes about video. We think, well, media is video. Media is anything. Media is an article, a slide, you're reading from a book chapter. You're listening to part of a podcast. So there's media options that you have for whatever it is, whether it's announcements or worship or your message, your core text. Then I say, well, there should be a wow moment. Well, what's your wow moment? Your wow moment is something that you could just amplify, whether in any element, in your message. That could be your illustration. You're going to pull off a wow. Like me, when I would speak at camp, I did a series where every week it was called Road Rules, and every week I drove into the sanctuary on a different type of vehicle. So the first night I walked in. The second night I rode a bicycle. The third night I rode in on a motorcycle. And the fourth night I drove in a car. That's right. It's on my YouTube channel. You can check that out at youtube.com/Jedi for Hire. I know it's a funny name. I didn't know what the channel was going to be when I started it, so I just called it Jedi for Hire. You can find it in the links below. And then, so that's my wow. So what's your wow for your youth meeting? What's your wow media? What's your wow announcement? What's your wow game for your opening ideas? What is your wow? Do you have a wow? I think every meeting should have one. And then we go over to the next part there. You start there, and then you start into this. And you go into the part here where let's move this over here. Okay. Where then you say, okay, oops, excuse me. Then you go into the section here where I believe student involvement is key to youth meetings. So I just put 3 there. You can have more than 3, but I put in there the name and what role they have. Students are involved in youth meetings. It's not just me running the show here. It's entirely, collaborative to be the church. It's not just you sit there and listen to me. It's you participate with me. That's discipleship. And then we have adults, and your adult leaders need something to do. And so they have roles and responsibilities. Leaders, like students, that don't have that have roles or responsibilities can oftentimes be your trouble people, because you're asking them to do something like sit down and be quiet, or stand over there and just make sure nobody talks. And the problem is that those folks don't have a role or responsibility, or they don't have enough of a role or responsibility, or they're mismatched. You've given somebody who has different gifts, abilities, and talents, and you've given them something that they're not good at. And so they're not going to like it a whole lot. That's why we have to try to find people there. But you need a place for your students, and you need a place for your adult volunteers. Then I have the 3 P's: prayer, people, process. And those are the details, right? What are we praying for? What people need to be involved? And what's the process for getting some of these things done? What process do I need to have for the media? Design the slides, put the slides in, add the music, shoot the video. This is basically like details, right? These are details. These are things. Prayer is number 1. What are we praying for? What are we praying about? Make sure putting your prayer in there, right? You're praying about this meeting. Then you have people. Well, who needs to be involved? Either people from your team that can participate, or somebody else. Some sort of people are involved, students, adults. And then process. Those are little details. How will you do the thing? What is your wow? What is your process for doing the wow? And then you get a little more nitty-gritty with that. And then finally, meeting evaluation. You eventually go back and say, I'm going to evaluate the meeting. What did I accomplish here? What was good? And then in the book, I share with you how to, evaluate, how not to be so hard on yourself, how not to, judge everything by pass and fail and all that. But that is my template for a typical youth night. And they're different, Nate. They're different. They can be different from week to week, because I might have one week where the focus is on worship. One week maybe depends what I'm teaching on, depends what my purpose is. And then the meeting, I formulate the meeting according, like tonight. Tonight is really different because I'm doing what is called, one of my students, I said, we're going to have a back to school barbecue. Great. And one of the young ladies said, a barbecue? I grabbed onto that and said, yes, a barbecue. And so we're all wearing pink tonight, and we're going to eat hot dogs and hamburgers and ice cream. And so my night is 1 hour. I say an hour and 15 minutes because there's always some leftover time. So it's an hour and 15 minutes. It involves everybody gathering for worship with the adults, because the students help lead the adults in worship. So we're going to do that. Then we go over, and I made sure that my message is first. We're going to eat. My message. Then we're going to eat. And then I have a little quiz, like a little Barbie quiz, right? How much do you know? That'll be like a Ken versus Barbie thing where guys and girls will compete to see if they know the answer or not. And then we'll do that while they're eating. And then I will release them to go get ice cream. And we have a s'more table so they can go make their own s'mores. And then we have Barbie versus Ken in cornhole. Who can make the most? Okay? Who can make the most of the, who can make the most in the cornhole with their beanbags? Okay? Let's see. Let's go ahead and we'll take this down here. And then Nate says, thanks for going through that. It's really helpful. I never went through a youth group as a kid, so when I took this on, I've been trying to figure out how best to structure it. Well, great, Nate. I'm glad I could be helpful. And I hope that book, once again, that book is on the store there. So let me know. I'd love to hear what you think about it and your thoughts on it. And yeah, so I think that's it. I think we've gone just about an hour today. I want to thank all of you for tuning in. If you have any last minute comments or questions, but I think we've covered the 3 questions fairly well. And then we'll get together next week, 2 p.m. Central Standard Time on Wednesday for office hours, where I answer 3 youth ministry questions. And then we have a good time together. We sit, we talk. You can join me for prayer that morning if you want. I do prayer at 8 a.m. Central Standard Time. And you can hang out with that. And if you've not subscribed to the channel, be sure to subscribe to the channel. And that way you will be notified when I go live if you click the little bell notification as well. But you'll also be updated when I upload videos. So I hope that you'll do that as well. But that is it for today, guys. Thank you so much for hanging out. All the links that I talked about today, by the way, will be in the show notes. And Nathan, you have a great week as well, brother. Nate, if you guys are having meetings tonight, Nathan and Nate, have great youth meetings tonight. And hope a lot of kids come to know the Lord, grow in their faith. Hopefully it'll be a good night for you guys. And pray for my night as well. Pray for my night as well, because I want to see some young people jump on board with Jesus and really start growing in their faith. So let's pray for that. All right. That's it for today, guys. Thank you so much. Appreciate you guys hanging out. And I'll catch you guys in the next office hours. We'll talk to you guys later. Have a good day, everybody. Bye.